The knock came at exactly 6:03 a.m. I remember the time because I looked at the clock and thought, no one brings good news before sunrise. When I opened the door, a deputy sheriff was standing on my porch, holding a stack of papers with my name on them. An eviction order. Effective immediately. The plaintiffs? My own parents. They claimed I was a delinquent tenant living in their house. The house my grandfather left to me in his will. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't anger. This wasn't a family argument. This was strategy. They had planned this. Filed documents. Forged signatures. Changed addresses. They weren't trying to scare me. They were trying to erase me. And here's the part that still gives me chills. They thought I would panic. Cry. Break. Leave quietly. They had no idea I was already taking pictures of every page. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, stay with me. Because what happened next wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was calculated. And by the time we walked into that courtroom, the people who tried to legally steal my home were the ones shaking. Before I tell you how I turned their eviction into a criminal investigation, do me one favor, like this video so this story reaches someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you believe quiet strength is more powerful than rage. And when you're done watching, tell me in the comments. What would you have done if the people trying to destroy you were your own parents? Before the knock. Before the papers. Before the word eviction tried to rewrite my life in black ink, there was the house. The blue shutters were slightly faded now, but my grandfather, Walter Hayes, used to repaint them every spring like clockwork. He said a house should look like it's proud to be standing. And this one was. It had survived storms, recessions, and 3 generations of stubborn bloodlines. When he passed, he didn't leave me money. He left me this place. And that meant more. I'm Clara Hayes, 32, operations manager at a mid-sized tech firm downtown. I'm not reckless. I don't live dramatically. My life is built on lists, early mornings, and quiet discipline. I pay my bills before they're due. I document everything. I believe stability is something you construct brick by brick. This house was my anchor. I kept my grandfather's tools in the garage exactly where he left them. I restored the hardwood floors myself, sanding them on weekends until my hands blistered. I planted lavender under the front window because he loved the scent. Every improvement I made wasn't just renovation, it was continuity. People assume inheritance is luck. It isn't. It's responsibility. The will was clear. I'd sat beside him in the hospital when he confirmed it with his attorney. This house is yours, Clara, he'd said. Not because you need it. Because you'll protect it. And I had. Property taxes paid. Insurance updated. Title recorded. I kept digital copies and paper copies in a fireproof safe. I wasn't naive. My parents, David and Linda Hayes, had never liked that decision. They thought the house should have stayed with the generation that built it. As if I wasn't family. As if I hadn't been the one driving Grandpa to his appointments while they argued about investments. But they hadn't fought it legally. Not then. Over the past 2 years, they made comments. Small ones. Subtle. My father questioning whether I could handle ownership. My mother asking if I'd ever consider signing it back for safekeeping. I always smiled. Always said no. Calmly. Because this wasn't about rebellion. It was about autonomy. The morning before everything collapsed, I had gone to bed early. I had a presentation scheduled at 9 a.m. A promotion discussion coming up. My life felt structured. Earned. Predictable. I remember setting my phone on the nightstand and thinking how peaceful the house felt. The kind of silence that feels earned, not empty. Then came the knock. 3 heavy pounds against the wood my grandfather installed himself. In that instant, standing barefoot in my hallway, something inside me tightened, not fear exactly. Instinct. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't random. And when I opened the door and saw the uniform, I realized something had been moving against me, long before I ever heard it. What I didn't know yet was how far they were willing to go. The deputy introduced himself as Mark Reynolds. His voice was steady, almost apologetic. He handed me the documents and said, "Ma'am, this is a court-issued eviction. Possession granted today." I didn't react. I read. Plaintiffs, David Hayes and Linda Hayes. Claim, non-payment of rent. Tenant refusal to vacate. Tenant. My father had signed a sworn statement declaring himself the legal owner. Attached was a lease agreement with my forged signature. Monthly rent amount. Late notices. And proof of a service, delivered to an address I hadn't lived at in 6 years. My mother had signed acknowledging receipt, on behalf of Clara Hayes. They hadn't yelled. They hadn't threatened. They had built a paper version of me, and then defaulted her in court. Deputy Reynolds shifted his weight. "I have to execute this by noon." I looked up at him and said calmly, "This house is mine." He studied my face. And for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. But doubt wouldn't stop the clock. And I had less than 6 hours to dismantle a lie that had already convinced a judge. I asked Deputy Reynolds one question: "When was the judgment entered?" 2 weeks ago, he said. 2 weeks. While I was at work. Sleeping in my own bed. Living normally. They had filed the case listing my old apartment as my address. Of course I never responded. Of course I never appeared. A default judgment was inevitable. It was almost elegant. I stepped aside and invited him in. Not to surrender, but to buy time. I photographed every page of the order. Case number. Filing date. Court division. My hands didn't shake. Inside, though, something cold was forming. This wasn't desperation. It was premeditation. My parents hadn't exploded emotionally. They had studied procedure. Deputy Reynolds watched me carefully. "You don't seem surprised," he said. I gave him a small smile. "I'm not surprised," I replied. "I'm calculating." And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about eviction. It was about erasure. And I was about to make my first move. Buried behind the fake lease was something worse. A recorded deed. 2 weeks earlier, a transfer had been filed with the county, showing that I had voluntarily conveyed the property back to my parents. Signed. Notarized. Stamped. My signature. Dated at 3:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. At 3:42 p.m. that Tuesday, I was in a recorded executive meeting at work. Badge scan logs. Security cameras. Calendar invite. Witnesses. They hadn't just tried to evict me. They tried to rewrite ownership. Deputy Reynolds saw my face change. "What is it?" he asked. "They forged a deed," I said quietly. That wasn't civil manipulation anymore. That was fraud. A legal theft attempt dressed in procedure. I looked at the clock. 6:28 a.m. If they succeeded today, I wouldn't just lose possession. I'd lose the paper trail of truth. And I realized something chilling. They weren't betting on being right. They were betting on me breaking. At 7:10 a.m., my father called. I let it ring once before answering. His voice was controlled. "Clara, don't make this harder than it has to be. You've made choices. We're protecting what's ours." Ours. My mother took the phone. "Just pack a bag. We can talk later." They spoke like I was a teenager who'd missed curfew. Not the legal owner of the property they were trying to seize. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. "I'll handle it," I said. My father sighed. "You won't win this. That was the humiliation. They thought I didn't understand the system. That I'd crumble under paperwork and pressure. Deputy Reynolds watched me hang up. "You have until noon," he reminded me. I looked at him calmly. "I won't need that long." And for the first time, I saw concern, not for me. For them. When the call ended, the house felt different. Not violated. Tested. I went to the kitchen table and opened my laptop. No frantic Googling. No emotional messages to friends. Just deliberate steps. Case lookup. Court division. Filing history. Default judgment granted based on failure to appear. Service marked as completed. Deed attached as proof of ownership. They had constructed a clean narrative: irresponsible daughter refuses to pay rent, transfers property back, stays illegally. Efficient. Cold. Deputy Reynolds stood by the doorway, clearly expecting panic. Most people cry, argue, beg for more time. I did none of that. Instead, I opened the digital folder labeled Property, Hayes House. Inside, original will. Probate order. Recorded deed transferring title to me. Tax receipts. Insurance declarations. Utility bills in my name. Paper doesn't lie. People do. At 8:02 a.m., I printed everything. Then I turned to him and said, "I'm going to the courthouse." He hesitated. "Ma'am, even if you file something, the order stands until a judge suspends it." "I know," I said. Because this wasn't about convincing him. It was about interrupting the machine before it crushed me. As I grabbed my keys, I felt the weight of something heavier than fear. Betrayal is loud. Strategy is quiet. And I was done reacting. Now I was moving. Driving to the courthouse, I didn't cry. That surprised me. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because something inside me had already shifted. There's a moment when shock turns into clarity. When you realize anger would only serve the person who wants you destabilized. My parents weren't counting on evidence. They were counting on emotion. If I broke down, if I screamed fraud without documentation, I'd look defensive. Irrational. Exactly the narrative they built. So I did the opposite. I organized my folder in chronological order. Highlighted timestamps. Flagged the badge access logs I could request from my company's security department. Made a written timeline in my notes app. At a red light, I whispered to myself, "You don't fight noise with noise. You fight it with proof." They believed I'd crumble under the humiliation of being labeled a delinquent tenant. They forgot who raised me. I learned procedure from watching them manipulate it for years. I learned patience from my grandfather. By the time I parked, I wasn't a daughter defending herself. I was a property owner filing an emergency motion. And I wasn't asking for mercy. I was demanding review. By 9:15 a.m., I was standing at the clerk's window requesting an emergency stay of execution on the eviction order. My voice was steady. My documents were aligned. My argument was simple: improper service, fraudulent deed, falsified lease. The clerk scanned the file and frowned. "This shows a recorded transfer back to your parents." "I never signed that," I replied. She studied me, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. People who lie over-explain. I didn't. I pointed to dates. Addresses. Inconsistencies. Still, the default judgment existed. On paper, they had already won. That was the psychological brilliance of their plan. Once a court enters judgment, most people feel defeated. Overwhelmed. Ashamed. They leave quietly. My parents were probably at home, waiting for a call confirming I'd been removed. They imagined me dragging boxes to the curb. Crying. Calling them for help. They underestimated something fundamental. I don't crumble under pressure. I narrow. The clerk leaned closer. "If you're telling the truth, you need a judge today." I know, I said. Because the clock was still ticking. And if I failed to interrupt this narrative before noon, it would become reality. Sitting in the courthouse lobby, I studied everything: the clerks, the schedule boards, the walls lined with legal notices. Patterns emerge if you pay attention. Timing, routine, the way staff handle certain cases. I watched a deputy deliver another eviction. He moved with mechanical precision. The clerk barely glanced at the file. The system trusted procedure over truth. That's where they counted on me failing. They assumed no one would notice a forged signature, a false service address, or a deed backdated by 2 weeks. I opened my folder again. Highlighted emails, scanned utility bills, badge logs. I annotated the discrepancies. Every timestamp a trap for fraud. Every witness a potential ally. Then I spotted her, Clara, the court records officer I'd worked with before on unrelated filings. She recognized me. I smiled. She whispered, "Something smells off. You're not listed here." I nodded. Small, silent alliance forming. Strategy isn't obvious. That's the point. My parents believed they were ahead. They couldn't see me watching. Learning. Mapping weaknesses. By the time the judge would enter chambers, I already knew which inconsistencies to present. And I knew one thing for sure: their victory was only an illusion. At 11:05 a.m., I stepped into the clerk's office with a printed motion for an emergency stay of eviction. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I laid out the timeline: fraudulent deed, incorrect service address, forged lease, conflicting dates. Each document annotated, each fact traceable. Deputy Reynolds watched from the hallway, silent but alert. He hadn't spoken to me since the knock at 6. Now, he leaned slightly forward, curiosity replacing his early skepticism. The clerk reviewed my submission and paused. "This needs judicial approval." I nodded. "I'm requesting immediate suspension until a full hearing. The filing itself is fraudulent." Minutes stretched. Every second felt heavier than the last. Then, the judge arrived, Judge Marlene Whitaker, and scanned my packet. Her eyes flicked from my calm face to the evidence, back again. She didn't smile, didn't scold. She simply asked, "Has the opposing party been notified?" "No." "Improper service," I said. Her pen moved. A stamp. A signature. The emergency stay was granted. For the first time that morning, I exhaled. But the quiet that followed carried a warning: this was just the beginning. The real confrontation, the reckoning, was still to come. After the stay was granted, I thought I could breathe. I was wrong. At noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My mother's voice, deceptively calm: "Clara, this isn't necessary. We can fix this without making a scene." Fix this. As if the fraud could ever be fixed. I didn't respond. I knew the tactics. They wanted to intimidate, to make me doubt my own evidence. To pressure me into dropping the motion. Then an email arrived from the court system, a notice claiming missing documentation for the deed review. It was a scare tactic, designed to confuse me, to force me to panic. Instead, I documented it. Printed it. Logged timestamps. Forwarded copies to Deputy Reynolds and my internal security team. Every attempt to shake me off balance became another thread in my web of evidence. By 2 p.m., I realized something critical: the closer they got to exposing themselves, the more desperate and reckless they would become. And desperation is predictable. Every forged signature, every false claim, every threat, all of it was leaving a trail. The question wasn't if they'd slip. It was how long it would take before I caught them. By late afternoon, I faced a choice. To continue building my case, I needed internal security records from my company showing my presence during the supposed deed signing. Accessing them required leaving my work duties unattended for hours, and risking questions from my boss, who trusted me implicitly. It was a minor professional gamble, but significant. One misstep, one delayed email, one unreturned call, and my credibility could be questioned. My parents counted on distractions like this. They thought I would prioritize routine over proof. I paused. Thought of the eviction papers on my kitchen table. The forged deed. Their smug confidence in their plan. Then I made the decision, sacrifice convenience for evidence. I requested the full security logs, notified HR of my brief absence, and coordinated with my IT ally to retrieve time-stamped entries. By 5 p.m., I had concrete proof. I was physically present at work during the alleged signing. Video, badge scans, emails, everything aligned. It was exhausting, isolating, and tense. But it also positioned me to turn the tables. And yet, as I reviewed the folder one last time, a single thought lingered: they still didn't know I was coming for them. The trap was ready. The next morning, the courtroom smelled of polished wood in anticipation. I arrived early, folder in hand, evidence organized like a chessboard. My parents entered moments later, confident, smug. They believed the stay of eviction was a temporary inconvenience, a minor setback in their plan. Judge Marlene Whitaker called the session to order. I presented the fraudulent deed, the forged lease, the misaddress notifications, and the security logs proving I was at work during the alleged signing. I remained calm, letting the documents speak louder than any words. Then came the notary, Janet Collier, supposedly witnessing the deed. The judge asked for the official book. Janet hesitated, then flipped through pages. Signature mismatches, wrong document numbers, conflicting dates. Under direct questioning, she faltered. Her voice cracked. I didn't witness this signing. Silence filled the room. The trap had worked. The facade of legal authority collapsed in real time. My parents' confident smiles faltered. Every forged signature, every falsified page, every assumption they made about my weakness unraveled before my eyes. They had built a perfect illusion of victory. And I had dismantled it quietly, deliberately, without a single misstep. The courtroom held its breath. The reckoning had begun. Judge Whitaker leaned forward, her gaze sharp and unyielding. This deed is fraudulent. The eviction order is suspended. The process is voided. Her words echoed like a hammer striking metal. My parents froze. David's jaw tightened. Linda's fingers twitched against the bench. For the first time that day, they looked small. The judge continued, detailing the discrepancies: forged signatures, improper service, fabricated lease, and proof of my presence at work during the supposed deed signing. The case will be referred to the Ministry of Public Affairs for investigation. The notary may face license revocation. I sat back, letting the impact sink in. This wasn't just legal vindication. This was exposure. Every calculated move my parents made, every attempt to intimidate or erase me, was now on record. Deputy Reynolds gave a subtle nod from the corner, respect in his eyes. Even the court clerk lingered, quietly impressed by how methodical I had been. My parents tried to speak, to twist the story, but the words fell flat. They realized, too late, that strategy and patience always beat arrogance and deceit. And in that silence, I understood something crucial: victory isn't loud. It's precise, inevitable, and leaves no room for denial. The courthouse emptied slowly, leaving echoes of footsteps and whispered judgments. My parents lingered a moment, their faces pale, eyes darting, as if searching for a loophole that didn't exist. But there was none. Every move they made, every forged document, had been catalogued, exposed, and rendered powerless. Back at the house, I changed the locks, installed security cameras, and ensured that every record, from the will to the deeds, was properly registered and protected. This was no longer just a home. It was proof. Evidence. Sanctuary. A fortress built not of walls alone, but of preparation, patience, and strategy. I never received an apology. They stopped calling. Tried to act as if nothing had happened. But the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. The power they thought they held over me dissolved in the quiet force of my response. Sitting in the living room, watching sunlight spill over the lavender under the front window, I realized what this was really about: not the house, not money, not control in any simple sense. It was about respect. About proving that being underestimated doesn't mean being weak. I whispered to myself, almost like a mantra, I didn't fight to win their approval. I fought to protect myself. And I did. The house stood firm, my legacy intact, my parents powerless. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. The question lingers: when the people closest to you betray you, how far would you go to reclaim your life? If this story gripped you and left your heart racing, hit that like button to show your support and let others discover it too. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Clara's shoes? And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of courage, strategy, and quiet victories, because sometimes the smartest battles are fought with patience and brains, not anger.